What you know about me? I seen it all, heard it all. Oh, what you know about me? I done it all, just want it all. Oh, what you know about me? I seen it all, heard it all. Oh, what you know about me? Oh, what you know about me? Oh, what you know about me?
Hey everybody, welcome back to a special episode of More Than the Title. It's episode 202, and it's my favorite day of the week. What day is it, cuzzo? It's all day. Let's do it, y'all. So welcome back to More Than Title. You know, guys, I'm your host as usual, Jarrett, Chief Revenue Officer at Outside the Box Digital. And of course, I got my brother, my brethren, your favorite CEO's favorite CEO, Chadeo. Man, what's the vibes, baby?
Man, listen, man, I'm super excited to have this guest on the show, man. I think, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to use the word phenomenal once again. Get your tape decks ready. Get your record buttons ready because I haven't steered you wrong yet, right? So once again, we got another phenomenal guest on this show. He's going to come on and drop some gems for you guys. Please pay attention because this gentleman has a lot of knowledge that he's about to share. And it's going to be another phenomenal episode. You can thank us later. You can thank us later.
Put it in the comments.
You know how we like to start off the show, G&T. I'm going to start off the show, G&T, today by being grateful of the fact that my cousin Grams turned 40 the other day, so congratulations, happy birthday to my cousin Roland, aka Grams. He turned 40 the other day, and I'm thankful that his lady threw him a surprise sneaker gala, sneaker ball party, and a lot of my family came and a lot of his close friends came in, and we got a chance to celebrate life. Too many times now. We are only coming together to celebrate death or tragedy, and we have to stop that. Everybody's grown. Everybody now has their own lives and their own families and branching off into different directions, but we got to find time to come back and just small moments and just celebrate life, right? We see what's going on, and it's a lot of just negative stuff in the world right now, so we have to try to make time to celebrate life. So G&T goes out to Grams and my family for coming together and celebrating life. Everybody came dressed up, looking good, smelling good, and we just had a great time celebrating life. That's nothing.
That was a great G&T, cuz I love
that, man. Yeah, man. It felt good, bro. I ain't gonna lie to you. It felt good, right? Because but we just had 3-4 people from the hood pass away within the last week.
Yeah.
You understand? So it's like, you know what I mean? So it felt good to see people come through dressed up and everybody had a great time and no arguments. And you understand what I'm saying? Just great. And you can tell when people are having a genuinely good time. Yeah, man.
That's what it's about, man. Those are the moments. Those are the moments.
And people flew in from out of state and everything. There was a lot of people that wasn't even from New York, that don't even live in New York no more, that flew in and drove in for the party. So that goes to show you,
that's love.
Who shows up for you, right? Who shows up for you? That
up. And we got to shout out who shows up for us too, man. Shout out to Angel Live is in the live podcast network, the first Black-owned, women-owned podcast network in the world, and the largest Black-owned podcast network in the world. So if you want more content from creators like More Than the Title, make sure you scan the QR code, download the app, subscribe, and half of your subscription goes to the content creator of your choice, y'all. So we don't just talk. We walk it. There it is. Even shout out to Angel, man. We see you. We see you on vacation, Angel. You deserve it, boss lady.
Yeah, shout out to the boss lady. Who's on vacation? Nobody told you to take a day off.
Well, let's get to it, Charlie. We're going to get to it. Let's get his brother the proper introduction he deserves.
Yes.
Let's start the show.
So I was talking to Tariq off camera, man. I just want to preface this with the audience.
Yep.
So when I first started my podcast journey, it was 2020. It was during the pandemic. I was working at an agency. Most of you guys know the story. For those who don't, I was just a sales guy trying to do something different. And I looked at everybody and what they were doing. And Tariq was somebody that I just saw on LinkedIn. He was doing his thing. He just felt like a different leader. You know what I mean? And I reached out to him in 2020. And to this day, we stayed in contact. And he's here today on the show, and it's just incredible. You know what I mean? It's an honor to have him on. So let's just give him the real. So what it is, he's a former chief marketing and digital customer experience officer for none other than McDonald's, y'all. leading the charge in crafting holistic and compelling brand experience across 13,000 locations. His resume speaks volumes, y'all. He's led brand innovation for giants like HP, Bank of America, PepsiCo, and Petco, where his leadership helped drive a successful IPO. He's an award-winning, data-driven strategist with a knack for blending creativity, technology, and consumer insights to brands that not only stand out, but stand the test of time, y'all. You guys have seen him in the boardroom.
Boom.
Seen him on your other podcasts.
Boom.
You've seen him at Con.
Boom.
You've seen him in the meetings, and you guys are trying to get him in the meetings. You're trying to get him, but he's here on your favorite podcast for the very first time. Let's introduce our brother, Mr. Tariq Hassan, y'all.
Yeah. Hey, much love, guys. Thanks. I'm gonna take you everywhere with me. That's a heck of an introduction, man. Thank you.
Welcome.
We're excited to have you, brother. What?
Yeah.
Your resume speaks for itself, man. And usually, how we like to start, because we're gonna get to the mindset, we're gonna get to the business, man. But I would love to, if you could start with, tell us a little bit about growing up, brother, and some early influences.
First, I gotta tell you, I love that I'm episode 202. Number 2 is my lucky number, and 22 was my sport jersey number. So I'm loving that I'm episode 202. It's got good energy all over it already.
Come on, man. Period 1.
Man, it is. Couldn't have planned that better. Couldn't have planned that better.
So thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate it. So, Jarrett, where you want to go from here? Jump in anywhere you want to
go. Growing up, some early influences, man. We'd love to know your background and know about more how you got to where you are.
Yeah, look, growing up's about as eclectic as my career too. I was born in Ohio, Toledo, Ohio, but I was raised in London, Ontario, Canada. Dad grew up in Canada, mom's grew up in the U.S. and eventually we ended up there as a young kid, and came back to the States after university to go to grad school in the States, and have been here ever since. Career-wise, gosh, I would love to tell you the sort of eclectic nature of my career was like brilliantly planned. It kind of, like life isn't the way it played out, but I've been blessed and some right things have happened by combination of hard work, a little bit of luck, and meeting some of the right people. As you know, relationships can take you a long way.
Method.
The first half of the career was agency life. And I think that's a chapter where I kind of really learned my, customer centricity, customer empathy, starting to understand insights, beginning understanding culture. And fell in love. I was a strategist, fell in love in that space between learning the client's business, but trying to, make it something simple that could connect in advertising and connect in culture. But I'm a relationship guy. That's who I was before I got into the business. That's who I'll be after I'm out of the business. It's just that those things are real important to me. And one of those relationships took me over to the corporate side. One of my clients was working on the Pepsi business for a long time. He got a first major global role with HP and asked me to jump over from the agency side to join him. And that chapter really, like a lot of things, you can end up in jobs, but the context of when you're up in them is kind of crazy how it can influence it, right? So it's like, I'm gonna age myself here, guys. Like I was 2008, and you had Facebook 2 years earlier. You had an iPhone come out a year earlier. I was working on something called apps. We weren't really sure what they were.
Yeah.
And so I worked in technology, but I worked at a time when it was sort of the beginning of the future of what we thought we could do with this stuff when the rest of the data and technology all caught up.
It was a blank canvas.
Man, and we didn't know what half of it did. I mean, we were trying to put apps on printers back then, because they weren't on phones yet. And so it was really starting to understand this Internet of Things and what it meant. Spent some time with Bank of America in the strategy space, the creative space, analytics, data. And also about 6 months in, they asked me to run the marketing for the wealth business. So I ran marketing for Merrill Lynch and U.S. Trust for Bank of America. And that was really my big data chapter. It was like one of every other household had a B of A product. And I was playing with the scale of data that very few companies had at that time. But we weren't really able to access a lot of it still. We were still waiting for the sort of the technology to catch up where you could move the data and personalize it and do it in a different way.
Yeah.
And then those relationships come back. That boss of mine back at HP, he got his first CEO gig at Petco. Funny thing happened on the way to another job I was on my way to. I had a break in between. He was like, hey, come down to San Diego for a beat. Help me out, figure out how to rethink this company because, I just took over a traditional brick and mortar company. We're not going to make it unless we figure out how to do this differently. And I got down there and I saw, a business where if, you got a pet, man, you're emotionally in. It's like being a parent, right? Just second to a kid.
Yeah.
80% of transactions were all on their app, but they weren't really doing anything with the data. And then we had a business that was more than just retail stuff. They had training and vets and grooming. And so we had services and we had products. And we sat down as a leadership. I said, this is a business we can get to a connected pet model, because all, the data and the apps were starting to work in a way we could do that. And then, we repositioned the company to become more of a health and wellness company for pets. And ironically, COVID ended up being this crazy blessing, because 35% of the country added a pet to their home during COVID. And so the business just skyrocketed and took off. And then, blessed to have been, in a position to take the company back public, which you don't get to do very often in your career. And I guess, we did a good enough job there that McDonald's reached out, some friends in the Chicagoland area I knew, and asked me to come and run the US business. And my excitement there was really about digitizing, our favorite little restaurant growing up as kids, right? That was like a drive-through and Happy Meals. And here was this opportunity to figure out how to really bring a digital future to McDonald's. And so did that for the last 4.5, almost 4 years to really reposition the company.
You're speeding, because this is crazy.
I wanted to let him finish. I wanted to let him finish a little bit, yeah. But
it is, but
you're
like, what the hell?
We gotta slow down, Tariq. We gotta slow down a little bit.
What the hell?
First of all, let's just backtrack a little, because you covered a lot.
Yeah.
And you touched on your childhood, but we just want to go back in depth a little bit more to the young Tariq, right? To the young Tariq. What did you say? You were a people's person, right? That's one of the things that you just said. Like, I'm a people's person, right? But when you were growing up, like, what were your interests then? Like, as young Tariq,
Yeah.
like, did you want to do communications from a young kid? Did you want to do something else? What was your kind of like field of study?
Yeah.
What was kind of like your influences as young Tariq, before you got to college? Like, what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, look, if I had my way back then, by now,
Right.
I'd have been a retired second baseman for the Cubs. I played a lot of.
There we go. Right.
That was my true north, and that's all I really wanted. I played that all the way up through into college, and that was my love affair. School was not easy for me. I'm dyslexic, but I wasn't diagnosed as being dyslexic till really late in high school. And I think that might be where some of the communication and relationship stuff comes from, because I knew I was struggling, and I knew whether certain things weren't right. I knew I wasn't learning the usual way. So you either get angry or you get relationships, right? And so I pivoted to working my relationships with teachers, and making sure that I had connections to help me figure out how to, I guess, develop coping mechanisms without realizing I was doing it before I truly understood what some of the issues were.
Wow.
My mom would tell you, it's no wonder I ended up in an industry like this, because I've always loved the question more than the answer. I love questions. And I think I was that kid that, why, right? I was a why kid when I was younger, for sure. So that's always been, to answer your question, I had no plans to go into communication. I always say a funny thing happened on the way to law school, right? The first thing was I decided I didn't want to go to school for another 3 years. And so it was like, what else could I go do? And then I stumbled into communications through a graduate program.
Wow. And then got into the agency side.
Yeah. Which I got to tell you, my mentor in college did everything in its power to convince me not to go agency side. And I was trying to move over to the corporate side, and there just wasn't really anything going on when I graduated. And I did this internship at an agency and kind of fell in love in that space between the business and the creativity, and that right brain, left brain thing just really kind of got me excited. And honestly, I wasn't sure I'd ever go over to the corporate side. It just, again, happens through those relationships and opportunities.
So we talk about relationships a lot, right? So one thing we ask a lot of our guests to come on is how do you maintain those relationships, right? Because we know with a lot of relationships, sometimes the ass, sometimes it's not making the ass, sometimes it's just cultivating it, right? Like, so how do you maintain those relationships over time? Like, what is one advice you give to our listeners?
Look, I'm not a very hierarchical person, and I'm certainly not a old school executive mindset. It's not just part of it's back to my own family, my own culture. I grew up in a Lebanese family where you didn't know who was going to be at the dinner table on Sunday night, and there better be enough food for everybody, no matter who just walked in. And so that's always been a little bit of my style. Is like I'm much more comfortable around people who are comfortable having a Sunday dinner with me than I am in a really, really formal situation. it took me a while in my career to get really comfortable. Like all of us, we have, we carry these personalities until we find enough a combination, enough of that success, enough people behind us that have our back, and enough experience, and then frankly enough to not give a shit anymore about what people think, to kind of say, okay, I'm gonna just show up and be a whole person of myself. And so I guess to answer your question, I don't really think much about it, in the sense that I hold my own relationships really important. So it's how I get approached. If people are authentic and real and come at it in a way where they want to have an established value in that relationship, and that value can show up 100 ways, right? It's not anything big, but it's just, it's what you give and get to each other, right? And sometimes that means you're giving twice as much in the relationship to be meaningful. So I don't know how to not be around people. I don't know how to not work without relationships. And generally, whether it was agency world or now, if I'm in a place where people don't want to kind of extend into that kind of connection, I don't tend to do as well. I know that. I'm okay with that. That's who I am.
That's real.
Once again, I want to just rewind a little bit.
Go for it. Go for it, Chadeo. Bring it back.
I just got to touch on certain things because
we gotta add that. You gotta add the DJ sound to bring it back.
Yeah. I got to get the rewind, right? Yeah. Tariq, a lot of parents, and this is a very important topic in our community, a lot of parents struggle with understanding how their children are learning in this day and age, and if they do have learning disabilities, how to identify them and best help them cope with them. So I really want to talk about this because I think this is extremely important, right? When I was growing up and when we were growing up, a lot of people didn't have the information to understand what learning disabilities were, right? So if I acted out in class, it was just, he's acting out. He has a behavioral problem, not really saying, but why is he acting out? Is he having trouble processing the information, et cetera, et cetera? So I think it's very important that we touch on this topic of, number one, let's start with, when did you realize it was a difference between, like, okay, is it the subject matter that's hard for me, or is it something else to make you say, maybe it's a little something different than the work is too hard for me to understand at the time? And just kind of walk us through the steps of why it took so long for you to get diagnosed. What was the conversations that you were having with your parents, and what that kind of looked like? I think we really need to touch on that.
I love that you asked that.
If you don't mind, if you don't mind.
No, I love it. It's frankly more meaningful than any of the,
the stuff,
sort of professional stuff, to be honest. Look, my parents were educated. I'm second generation immigrant. So I had parents who actually did go to, my dad did go to college. My mom was, pretty educated, frustrated, man. Like they couldn't figure out. There was this kid that they knew, was smart. I wasn't a rocket scientist, but they knew I certainly was in it. Grade 4, grade 5 was kind of the struggle years. I was probably sitting next to you, Chadeo, in the principal's office, but I was always in a way that I didn't really cause any harm, just goofed around because I couldn't figure out how to find my feet. They were kind of at their wits' end. They were gonna move me to a different school. And honestly, that's what I mean. Like sometimes your life is blessed with a little bit of luck of who comes by. And for me, I had 3 coaches that stepped in. So my folks were gonna pull me out of school in the 6th grade, and my one of the coaches I played basketball and soccer with and stuff, and he was like, I want him. You're not letting the kid go. I'm going to take him. And he knew how to motivate me, and he knew how to. He saw it. He saw something. And then the next year, I got passed to another coach, and then the 3rd year, another coach. They believed and they saw something. And then I think I had developed enough coping mechanisms, because I didn't actually get formally diagnosed to going into my high school, and that actually was a bit of a fluke, because I had good grades in high school. They weren't great, but I had good grades enough to go to college and get myself together. And, again, work those relationships, right? I'd go work with the teacher if I wasn't figuring something out, like figure out how to make it work. And I had an English teacher. Ironically, I was taking advanced level English as a dyslexic, which is hysterical, because it's exactly what you say. She'd read my papers and she'd be like, God, your ideas are cool here, but you got to slow down. You're just rushing. You're not, your syntax is this. You're making these mistakes or that. And then she's halfway through the year, she's like, you know what? I'm noticing some things that you do with my kid who's in the 6th grade just got diagnosed. She had me retested. and basically got, had the system tell me, damn, we missed. When you were tested back in 4th, 5th grade, we missed. So I'm lucky, but that same system then pivoted and said, well, now that we know this, you might want to think twice about college. Maybe, maybe that's not going to be right for you. Maybe you should think about community college. Because back in the day, right, they didn't really know how to do this. And I was just fortunate enough that, between my parents and and at one point I let it get to me and say like, oh man, this system totally let me down. And I had a teacher who I just was a great high school teacher, saw through the BS. He just grabbed by the scruff of the neck and he's like, I don't get you. He's like, you've been walking around the school for 4 years, not letting anybody tell you what to do. And now you're going to hear this and that's going to, no, I don't think so. And so I just, and I literally, as I tell you that story, I can literally see that teacher. He had me like up against the locker in the hallway, giving it to me. I can still remember it. So, yeah, parents who knew enough to kind of push, and then luck, man. I mean, that's 5 teachers that if they hadn't have stepped in, I could easily right instead of left, right?
Yes.
Those three grade school teachers. It's been a beat, but when I got my first like real big gig, I went home to Canada. I took them all out for steak dinners, and I'm still in touch with those teachers today. Because I give them credit for a lot of this.
But what is their reaction when they see you now? What is their reaction? Like, what is something
come on. I mean, you've had those coaches. No matter how big you get, those coaches are always going to see you and see through it, right? And they're like, not on my watch, kid. Like I don't care what you do for a living. You're at my table, right? And that's what they were. That's why they were so good. Just like my folks, by the way, right? My folks, like, and nothing was more important than education. Didn't matter what you did, but you were gonna represent your community. As my wife very wisely always says, the only true thing you own is your name. And so that has always mattered for me.
Yeah. And I bring that up, Tariq, because when we went to school, it was actually a system where if you didn't pass, they would leave you back, right? They would not allow you to continue forward because common sense would say if you haven't mastered this level of education, and education is compounding, built off of what you learned the previous year, then you should not go on. But now with social promotions and what they're doing, the no kid left behind, they're more concerned about socially how you're gonna, interact with your peers by you being left back. So they're just passing. Even if you fail, they're passing you anyway. So now imagine what it looks like for a child to want to get help now or try to get help where they're passing you anyway. There is no failure. So it's like, do you even know what to look for anymore, right? And look how the system... Huh?
Every kid learns differently too, cousin. Not to cut you off.
That's true.
That's another thing that needs to be changed. Every kid learns differently. Like the way was processing information, the way you and I was processing information. And if we don't do it the same cut corner way that everybody else did, it's just like, you know what I mean? I just don't like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'll tell you though, if I could, Chadeo, the piece that so I got through that, and at each successive level of education, I did better, like we all do, because we actually like it. We're leaning in, right? So it's easy to get into it. The part that I wasn't prepared for was, and somehow in my mind, I had convinced myself when I graduated from grad school, like, oh, okay, there we go. I got through the institutions. I'm in a job now. Let me go. But I was in the communication space, and computers had advanced, right? There weren't even word processors when I first started college.
Right.
But I did not have either at the time, probably the self-awareness, the confidence, or the understanding of how to share what that meant as a professional.
Right.
And so the thing that's kind of crazy is it took me pretty much up until, I don't know, 10 years, the last 10 years, for me to be comfortable enough in the professional environment to say to people, yo, I'm dyslexic. And so you're going to see emails come, you're going to see texts come, you're going to see things come. That's like, is this guy like reading his own stuff, right?
That is crazy. You said that.
Yes.
Right. And it's no different than the biases we all face, right?
Hold on, Tariq. Tell him, Cuzzo. Tell him. Tell him.
My mentor, God rest his soul, Solomon Choi. So he ran 16 Handles, if you've heard of him.
Yep.
He was the CEO and founder of 16 Handles, right? And I met him through a cold call. One thing he always told me, it takes you 10 years to find yourself and be authentic in a professional environment. 10 years. That's something he always told me. And if you to say for 10 years, for you to really find your footing and say, this is who I am, this is how I'm going to operate.
I'll tell you what, it took me, it's only been in the last 10 years I figured it out. It took me. Here's the deal. I had figured it out enough to be able to say it quietly to the right people that mattered.
Right.
The difference now is I actually understand it as like, it's actually my superpower.
Right.
Yeah. My dyslexia, I've now actually come to understand as to why I'm able to look at problems the way I do. What I've had to learn is it goes back to what you were saying, like I see things differently. I view information differently, but that also means I get to ideas in a different way. And so I've had to learn how to help bring people along with me. And I've had to learn how to process that for myself. But it took me a really long time to be able to look at people that I was close with and I was tight with and I trusted and be able to say, yo, there's this thing about me, and actually lose that potential shame or concern that somehow would slow me down. Now I'm like, if you don't like it, then you don't get me at the base of who I am, and you're actually going to miss out on one of the strongest points the way I think. But that took a long time. So your point, Chadeo, I worry a ton about kids who face those kind of processing approaches for learning as we move forward. It's definitely an area I'm going to continue to spend time in as I get more and more free time.
You got to listen to him. You can learn something.
Yeah. Let me tell you something, Tariq. People think that when you admit one of your weaknesses, we're in a world now where you only want to admit your strengths, like having a weakness or not being as good at doing something else as you are at another task is like a weakness or a chink in the armor. When it's who you are, it's your character, right? It helps develop you mentally, right? Because your weaknesses, you have to figure out how to get past them, right? Critical thinking, analytics, it helps you process a different way. One of the things we do here all the time with entrepreneurship, especially, right? You have to be honest with yourself and what your strengths and your weaknesses are. If you come into this field of entrepreneurship and you are lying not only to yourself, but the people that you are working with your weaknesses, you can effectively destroy the company before you even give it a chance to even develop. Absolutely. Because you're lying to yourself. And instead of getting the help that you need, whether through tutelage, mentorship, or something like that, outsourcing it and paying somebody that actually knows how to do it to teach you how to do it, or just outsourcing it in general, you lie about it, which wastes time, which wastes resources that possibly, when startups start, you're tight anyway. You might not have it all. You can end up tanking the company anyway. So what we do up here is we're honest with each other. That's why I laughed when you said that, because a lot of the times, like, I do the contracts and I'll do a lot of stuff, and I'll tell a guy, so listen, I sent this out to you, but it might have some spelling errors. I'm not the best speller. I'm telling you right now. Like, you understand what I'm saying, Tariq? Like,
be in a contract.
I'm like, skim the contract for me. I know the language is right, but I might have misspelled there and there. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Well, and it's one of those things where, like, you are spot on. Like, I am a big believer in strength finders, right? Lead with the strength. I'm not going to spend my time trying to work on the things that I know either I can't do or other people really can't do well. What I'm going to do is leave myself open to find people to fill those gaps, right? And so the success that I have had, I always say, I always joke around, say, like, yeah, I'm of the Ronald Reagan School of Management, man. I get myself around people who are way smarter than me on a ton more subject areas as me, try to learn from the best I can, get people I can trust to let them run, but put that coalition of capabilities together. And that's why I'm not a particularly hierarchical leader. Like, even my own leadership teams, I work in what I refer to as a horizontal leadership model. Because I just think as you flatten organizations and you remove what I ultimately think is one of the biggest weaknesses in business today, is you have to work hard to remove fear of failure. Right. You've got to have space to be comfortable to fail. And the only way you can do that is how you show up as a leader, the way you structure an organization, but then also not only like talking about why failure is okay, you got to celebrate it. I the last 2 roles I've been in, I actually actively celebrated what I called failing greatly, because there is a great way to fail, and contrary to belief, there is a dumb way to fail too, right? But I would celebrate something I call amazing almosts, right? Where my leaders were accountable quarterly for nominating great failures from their organization. We would evaluate them and we would look at them by, did you set the objective, right? Did people know what you're trying to get done? Did you measure? Did you go through? And it didn't hit. It cannot hit for a bunch of different reasons. And I joke around with my teams. I say, you know what startups call failure? They call it a pivot.
There you
You
go.
can't go into a room and try to fundraise and say, oh, we failed. What you can do is go in and say, we were doing this, we did this, we learned from it, and now the business is doing this.
Yes. Yeah.
Write me a check, right? How do you infuse that mindset into an organization so that your team doesn't think twice about, I might take this shot, but damn, if I miss, what's the repercussion? As opposed to, damn, if I don't do this, and if I don't take the chance to miss, what's the repercussion, right?
But
You're spot on.
How do you implement that though, right? When you go into an organization, the culture might be different, everything might be different, there might be different hierarchy, all of that stuff. And now you come in and you want to implement these bold ideas. How do you get that sold throughout the entire organization?
You know, it's interesting. When I first joined McDonald's, it was one of the biggest things I saw was going to be a requirement for us to sort of bend the curve to change both the business and the brand image and culture that we've done in the last 4.5 years.
Yep.
But I saw that there was a total paralysis of that nervousness of failure. And so I started talking it for a while, and I had my leaders talking it for a while. And guess what? That was nice. And then you leave the room and people still wouldn't do it. So that's when we started this formalizing it and saying like, okay, we started celebrating these amazing almost. And it was a small thing, Jared. Like, you know, if you won it was like a $50 gift certificate, or if a team failed, like we threw them a pizza party. It was just giving people the opportunity to recognize that they took a smart chance. We learned from that chance. We went on to do something else from that failure. And y'all still here. Like, no one eviscerates and disappears just because they took a shot and missed. To the point Chadeo made is like, if you don't take that shot, the whole company might not be here, right? Like,
ooh, that's
so it was small actions, and don't make a mistake, it took some time. It took me almost 2 years to get the organization to believe like, oh, this guy's like, he's okay with this. He's okay with this.
Yeah. And I think the same way. If you don't take the shot, like look what's happening right now. We're still at this. How do we see growth? And we just keep doing the same thing over and over.
Yeah.
And that's how you picture it.
I think it goes back to you not even realizing, Tariq, that you now have become the coach that helped you when you were in school. You're now the coach. You now see something within the organization and its workers. You're the coach now. And you're the one that's snatching them up saying, what are you doing? What are you doing? Right? Let me see that idea. Don't play it out, because how do we come up with inventions? How do we come up with innovation and technology? It's having the idea. And remember, before it becomes mainstay, it's always crazy, right? You're gonna design a flying what? To fly? Nobody's ever gonna. Are you kidding me? And now airplanes. You're gonna design a car. Everything's crazy until it's not crazy, right? Method. But if you don't foster that creativity, right? Like the coach to the child. If you don't foster that and say no, let's play it out, because it might not work in the manner right now. You might just need to tweak it a little bit. But let's see the framework of it, right? Or perfect example, like you said, hey, we have a great idea, but technology hasn't caught up to the idea yet, right? We're working this thing. We got the app. We don't know what it's really going to do yet. We know we want to do this, but technology hasn't caught up. They didn't abandon the app. I remember when the App Store first launched, right? And then I remember when they did that big campaign, 1 million apps daily. You know what I'm saying? Like, look at the difference in that, right? So I think that stop being afraid to listen to people's ideas, right? Because it's that creativity that's going to help these companies grow, right? It's that creativity that's going to help you redefine the structure. You might get an idea that might take the company into a whole different direction that you never even thought possible by just letting somebody kind of like go through the motions. And again, in the moment, it might not work, but we might shelf it, but not, like you said, not destroy it, but we'll let technology catch up. We'll keep working on it and refine it. And when it's time, it might be groundbreaking. You might be the first of whoever to do something like that. You know,
that's why you're cooking with grease. Tariq, to give you context, this is why we started the show.
Yeah.
This is why it's more than a title.
Yeah.
We were those employees. I was that employee, a senior account executive at a big tech firm, and I'm sitting there knowing I can build a website. I can do this. I know about attribution. I've done PPC. I've done display. I've sold every facet of marketing. but you have me in this one area of sales. That's just one area I'm good at because I know relationships, right? Because they told me what the black book like, and when I first used to start, I never had a black book. I'm from the neighborhood. I'm from the Bronx. I didn't know nobody in this neighborhood. I didn't know anybody in the space. I'm the only person in the Bronx that worked at Con.
So if you think about all the different stories we all bring to work and to our teams every day, right? Those stories are so much more than our professional careers.
Come on.
And they come with layers and beliefs of what you think your permission to fail is even, right? So even when I'm saying it's okay, you got to take that fail. That failure even looks different to an individual who's grown up in a community where there was no room for failure, or the definition of failure was different, or it was punitive to even be partially successful, right? And so part of it's understanding it, and then the other part, to go back to your question about, Jarrett, how you do it, is like you got to go down into the organization, which is why I believe firmly you can't have big hierarchical structures on this, right? You as a leader have to be down talking. And I'm a big fan of reverse mentorship. I love spending time with younger people in the organization, and they're like, oh, this is so great, I'm gonna get time to mentor you. I'm like, you're on the spot. You're gonna help mentor me, because like, I got to understand how you all are thinking about things. I can't move things through if I don't understand how you all are talking about things and thinking about things, and like the amount of things that put this way, a perfect example. We as senior leaders, because I'm this kid who loves questions, as leaders, quite often when we ask questions, our teams interpret that as a nice way of telling them to go do something. And that's a terrible miss in an organization, to not be able to allow the power of questions to work. Like, I had to get to a place with my team. They now know my catchphrase. I would say to them, just a wonder. That would mean to them, I really mean I want to ask a question. Can we have a conversation about a question? As opposed to, I'm not telling you through a question, right? And so those are really, really important cultural elements to develop with an organization, because if companies lose the ability to question each other and question themselves, it's no different than relationships we have. If you lose the ability to question and challenge each other, they don't grow.
But I'm curious now. What was one of the best ideas that came out of the Amazing Almost? What was one of the best things that you'd be like, look what we've done because we've implemented this thing. Look what has happened as a result of this.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. You look at the adult Happy Meal that we did 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago, came out of somebody. So it started with a tweet. Someone had tweeted, one day you wake up and you don't even realize you had your first Happy Meal, right? And there's this little kid inside you that kind of goes, oh, when did that happen? That was in a tweet, and that tweet kind of blew up. And so somebody asked, like, well, what's behind that tweet? And it was like almost 2 years that question sat around with everyone kind of kicking it, but not really bringing it to life. And then finally we said, well, wait a minute, that whole reason we're struggling with that is we don't think we can bring a Happy Meal to an adult. Well, maybe we actually can. And so that's when we did the Cactus Plant Flea Market Happy Meal. And spent the time saying, well, wait a minute. And particularly, I think about it, it's like 22 that we did that. So you're coming out of COVID. People are still looking for some aspect of joy in their lives, et cetera, right? Like, that's what McDonald's is. So how do we just take a moment and kind of go, let's do that. Let's create that little kid inside of you and give you a moment to celebrate it. And then we spent some time with Cynthia Liu and Cactus Plant and said, that's the brief. How would you bring it to life? Right. Little known secret, all of this work we've done about bringing, everyone talks about nostalgia, bringing, Grimace back and the Hamburglar back. Here's a little known secret. That was Cynthia's idea. It happened when we did that Happy Meal, because we don't work with people unless they have their own relationship with the brand. So when I was working with the company, when we would develop collaborations, our first conversations, whether it was a celebrity or not, was like, tell us about your relationship with McDonald's. So when we were talking to Cactus Plant, we gave them the brief on, like, let's make this meal. It was her that came back and said, I got my little buddy, Cactus Buddy. He represents me. And I used to hang out at McDonald's after school with my friends. He doesn't have any friends. I'm going to take the McDonaldland characters and create a friend group for him. That created that connection that started to roll that we then just continued to play with. So, that's all through collaboration and asking the right question and asking what if. And think about it. Can you imagine these guys pitching we're going to do a Happy Meal for adults. And oh, by the way, it's the same meal. It's the same Big Mac meal and chicken nugget meal you can get in the combo meal today. But we're going to put these little figurines in there and upcharge it.
Yeah, as an agency owner, me and Chad said,
right?
the agency owner inside of it is like, that's fucking brilliant, bro.
Right? And what did we do?
That's ballsy. I love it.
Do? We launched it. We sold out in 14 days. A 30-day promotion sells out 14 days with an average check of $21 at full margin versus an average check of $9. For what? Because we captured a little something inside that little kid in you because somebody said and wasn't afraid. It's like, why haven't we done this? We keep asking about this tweet. So it's creating that kind of environment and willingness to roll with it. And then you got to create the story and get the story told. You guys are agency guys, you got to, keep it sold with your clients. And in our case, making sure the franchisees believe that this idea was significant.
But it's really saying like, are you in touch with your customers truly? Not from the boardroom, but how many execs?
Yeah.
How many execs from McDonald's? They'd be like, yo, you work for McDonald's. How many times have you actually sat in a McDonald's and watched people? Here's a great question. How many times have you actually went to a McDonald's, any fucking McDonald's? Nobody knows who you are anyway. The average person won't know who the owner. You could be the owner that owns that particular fucking McDonald's.
What's that?
How many times have you actually said,
with the CEO when he's the secret guy?
Undercover boss.
There you go. That's why they can do that.
Yeah, undercover boss. How many times have you actually just walked into a McDonald's, maybe got yourself a meal and sat down and watched the McDonald's experience? Because let me tell you something, Tariq, as a crew, 10, 12, 15 of us, we would go to McDonald's. We would all order off the dollar menus, and it was an experience for us. We'd go sit in the back, and we'd sit there for hours every day and hang out. It was a cultural thing for us. Like you said, it was a cultural thing for us, right? And not only because of the food, but how we felt about our connection to the food. Let me tell you something. When McDonald's like, you switching your French fries, you know what I'm saying? Emotionally, like, what you mean you're not using the same potato you used to use before? Like, you understand? Like, it's a reason McDonald's French fries are considered the #1 French fry in the fast
100%.
food.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. What do you call McDonald's?
What do I call it?
What did you and your friends call McDonald's? You call it McDonald's all the time?
Yeah, McDonald's, yeah.
Oh,
Mickey D's.
Thank you.
Oh,
Mickey,
okay.
right?
Mickey D's, okay.
Mickey D's, McD's,
okay,
right?
yeah.
Right? I mean, it's understanding those elements. The thing that has made the journey of the amazing work that my team has done in the last few years is exactly what you're hitting on. We don't talk. The simple way we talk about is we don't talk brand to fan. We spend a lot of time talking fan to fan. So all the work that we did came about as a result of going literally on a road trip across the country, sitting in restaurants, not only sitting in restaurants, meeting them at a Walmart, going to church. Literally went to church and talked to the pastor and talked about the role that McDonald's plays in the community, right? Going in and talking to rock bands about, McDonald's runs after a gig and, when you're riding the cars and riding the buses as a band trying to make it. All of those kind of conversations. And we developed something we call fan truths. There's no work that we don't do that when the work is presented, the conversation would be, what is the fan truth that's behind it? And if there was not a fan truth behind it, even if the idea was spectacular, we didn't do it. Because you're not being authentic. And when you're a brand like McDonald's, at the scale of McDonald's, that authenticity, if it's missing, not only do your fans call it out, your crew will call it out in the restaurants. Like it shows. Chadeo, you're spot on. We spent lots and lots of time, and then like the head of insights that was one of my partners in the team. He literally worked from a McDonald's every week, a different McDonald's every single week. He worked from the lobby every single week, right? I will tell you the culture there. I mean, I had to work in a McDonald's over my near 4 years. I worked 4 weeks on a staff each year, kind of like a weekend store, and it is definitely part of the culture. But the critical nature of continuing to do that, particularly when business gets tough, gets really hard, right? So you don't get caught up in the, buy one, get one. You don't get caught up in this promotion or that promotion. You continue to understand how to have the brand show up in a way that's connected. And then the other part is not just about you talked about your friends showing up in the restaurant. The other thing that the team discovered, and we found a lot of magic in, was what it meant to work at McDonald's, right? And have it go from like being the McJob, which was viewed as a negative, to what now, a handful of years later, we stumbled onto the fact that 1 in 8 Americans has worked at McDonald's in their lifetime. Like, that's a crazy number.
1 out of 8 Americans. Crazy.
And by the way, it's only 1 in 5 Americans who've served in the military.
Ooh.
So it was like, how do we take that and make a point of pride? And by the way, if you're in a community and you are working there and you're paying your bills and you're actually finding a way to get to college, or you're like, these are meaningful careers and jobs for people, right? I meet today owners. When I was fortunate enough to be out meeting with franchisees, I met owners who started on a fry machine and worked their way up to actually owning 2, 3, 4, 10 restaurants, right? Wow. We weren't telling the pride behind that story. We weren't telling the stories of those communities. We weren't telling the connection that takes place. And that's part of what was, frankly, feel a little bit of a fraud sometimes, because I feel like my job was really easy. The diamonds were all sitting on the floor. No one just kind of picked them up, polished them off, and started to put them present. And that's really, and the key to what I did was like just leaning into like the culture that was already there, and giving permission to tell those stories.
Let me tell you something, Tariq. I'm gonna tell you this story. I'm gonna tell you this because you brought up that 1 in 8. I have a cousin. He's more like an uncle to me because he's a lot older, but he's actually my cousin. So we call him Uncle Charles. Uncle Charles is autistic. And my Uncle Charles would walk the equivalent of, let's call it about a mile across a bridge every day. So we lived in a 2-fare zone. So he would walk across the bridge, and he worked at a McDonald's on Hunts Point, and he lived on Colgate. So he would walk across the bridge and walk to work and walk home every day. And I think Uncle Charles did 25 years at McDonald's and walked to work, rain, sleet, hail, snow. And they never treated him poorly. They loved him. You understand? They, gave him different jobs, and they supported him. And this is what we talk about, again, like a part of the community of what McDonald's plays, right? So my Uncle Charles worked there for 25 years until he retired and things of that nature. And he enjoyed going to work. He wore his visor, the visor. He wore his visor, and he had his uniform, and he was proud. He was proud to go to work. And when he went to work, it wasn't like, oh, I'm working at McDonald's, like, woe is me. It was like, this is my job and I'm happy to do it. And that resonated because of the culture that they provided for him to feel that way, right? Super important, right? That he was able to have a job, have a career, right? And them forced to somebody with a learning disability and make him feel like he's welcome, which again helps in the community because the community sees that. And the community sees that, right? So,
100%.
Again, like,
we see it all.
100%. 100%. I mean, I was one of the greatest honors of spending time with that company was meeting a lot of Uncle Charles. I mean, that was like,
that's right.
And what they, I say that to take no specialness away from Uncle Charles. I say it for the specialness, so that is a place where all the Uncle Charles knew they could have meaning. They knew they could be seen. They knew they could have a meaningful role. They knew they could serve a community, and they knew they could make a living doing it. And that stuff's really meaningful. And so that's the stuff that I, between that and like other signals, like, last week was, the McDonald's All-American game was in Brooklyn last week. Right?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
I mean,
I was supposed to be there.
I took my daughter was like, wait, what do you mean you're leaving McDonald's? The game's in New York. I'm like, I think we're good. I think I can still get you there. So we were there. We were at the game and watch, because the 50-year anniversary of that game is in 2 years, and you're going to watch that game continue. Like it's been woken up. When you look at the play, like percentage of every player that's played in that McDonald's All-American game of the guys, what percentage do you think went on to the NBA?
I would say,
what's your guess?
30, 40, 80%. Nah, I want to say like 70, 80%, man. You gotta be nice to play in that McDonald's All-American game.
She does closer. It's almost 70% of those guys have gone on to play in the NBA.
Yeah, man. Right? Those are ball players.
So that's a game that the team just needed to be given room to unlock and really tell that story, you'll see a story told early next year. Amazon's going to release a documentary on the history of the game that we were part of in developing, and so part of that was about, the biggest elements of success that we had on the business during my tenure was leaning into culture. And a lot of brands talk about culture, but like for me, we were coming off. We had just done Travis Scott as I joined the organization, which had been a huge blow up moment, right? But as I said to the team when I got there, congratulations. I mean, this Travis Scott thing it's legit, it's real, right? And he's like off the hook what's going on with famous orders. But it's a campaign, guys. You now have put yourself into culture. Okay. What are y'all going to do to stay here? Because just as here, you can get canceled and you have to have a plan. And so we established a very clear roadmap of what McDonald's role in culture was. The first one, simple. We're a food company. So how are you going to impact the taste of culture? And you saw things like, different shifts in terms of spiciness to reflect sort of the changing taste of spice and culture. We did the mambo sauce out of DC. That was a tip of the hat to understanding Black culinary culture and really starting to think about the way we could connect. And that came out of two Black chefs that sat on an advisory council for McDonald's, one from Chicago, one from DC. And they got John at each other about where mambo really came from, et cetera, et cetera. And so how do you impact the taste of culture? The other area was like, you got to be in the culture, right? And so we didn't invent the food hack like on TikTok, but we knew we could participate in it.
Yeah.
And so the third one was in a world of digital and data. I basically declared that the data itself was part of culture, because in a digital first youth engagement culture, data, if you use it the right way, first of all, they all think you got it anyways. They don't care. Just use it properly, use it right, make value for me, make me happy. And all of a sudden you got a deeper relationship. So that was my real excitement of even going to McDonald's. When I left the organization, we ended last year with nearly 80 million people on the app, of which 45 million are 90-day actives. That was in 2021, we had about 15 million. By 2027, that business will have near 65 million on the 90-day active list. So now you've got this direct relationship on a business that's roughly a $9 check.
And at first,
that is a powerful way to connect. You want to understand culture, you better start understanding it face-to-face, one-to-one, and really get into it. And then the last one was like, bluntly, you're fucking McDonald's. You're big. Stop just participating in culture and look for moments to create culture. And that was not only a rally cry for the marketing that we did externally, but it meant if you're going to be creators of culture, then you also have to create that culture internally. So that was a rally cry for who were the people that we had down the hallways, who's working on the business, who do we have that understands culture, right? And does it reflect the culture of who's walking in out of our stores? Does it reflect the culture of the crews that work behind the counters? And so that was the laser focus and true north of the work that we did to authentically connect the brand. And that's why you saw things like Grimace blow up, right? I'd love to tell you the whole Grimace shake on TikTok was our doing. It wasn't. All we did was create a birthday moment and a shake, and creators did it. And as I said, my boss called me panicked saying, hey, should I be worried? We got people like faking alien deaths with these things. Like I said to him, look, I said, creators don't use your brand unless they love you.
Yep.
And you're getting a whole lot of love coming your way. As far as like try to explain it to you, go talk to your 16-year-old. I can't explain it to you. All I know is we're getting love for it, right? So part of it is, do you have the confidence to turn your brand over, right? We talk about sharing the pen. That's what we called it. Are you willing to turn the pen over? Are you willing to let marketplace go crazy with it? Are you willing to be flexible and nimble? When the Mets all of a sudden go on a crazy winning streak just because Grimace happened to throw out a ball, can you be part of it and understand how to do it, right? We had a blast with the Mets last summer, having fun with that and carrying it all the way through. And, so half of it is like, are you just willing to get out of the way and listen? And it goes back to what you said, they have to do that. You have to be able to listen to your fans and understand who your customers are in a way that sometimes you may not like the way they see you, but that's it. It's legit. Now you're going to be as authentic with them as they want you to be.
Yeah. So I got a message right now.
Hear me clearly.
In a world.
In a world where you listen to your customers, this is the biggest question of any McDonald's person that has ever patronized the McDonald's anywhere. Why? Why is the smoothie ice cream machine always broken?
Ice cream furry.
Why is the smoothie machine never
We want
broken? Why does every ice cream frosting machine break down?
So you know what? It's now officially a true interview because I'm always nervous if I don't get asked this question at least once.
Why is the frosty machine
so first of all, let me just give you a little love on the facts on this one, just to get things going and show you the power of social media.
Please.
What percentage of time do you think that machine is actually down?
I say every time. I've never seen it work.
We touch a fucking machine. It's always broken.
It's literally like less than 5% across the system. It is. The problem is like anything else, right? When you go in and it doesn't work, or you come out and you haven't even gone to McDonald's in a week or two, and someone's tweeting that it didn't work, you're like, yeah, it never works, right? It feels like it, right? And so the only thing I can tell you is, stay tuned. I wish I had stayed there long enough to be able to proclaim the problem solved, but I can tell you that the solution to the problem is, I won't bore you with it, but it's on the way. And that's a perfect example though, right? But that's a perfect example of like, I may not want to hear that, but the reason I'm hearing it with such passion is because I love you and I want it to work, right? And so whereas if I don't really care about you, I don't care about your buckling home and yard looking all raggedy and stuff. I don't care. I don't say anything. But if I'm your neighbor and I love you, I'm like, dude, can you cut the lawn? Can you get a little cleanup on? Can you get some paint? Right? Because so this is what I mean. Can you hear those things in a way that you recognize that's I need to capture that before it turns into something where I get nervous is when you stop calling and asking, right? That's when you should really get nervous as a business and a brand.
That's so rare. My son came in the room because he heard you talking about Grimace. My son came in the room because he heard you like this. We've had major interviews. We've had Beyonce's dad on. We've had some NBA first round picks. He said McDonald's. He said, Dad, I don't care what happens. I'm asking 3 questions. He said, I want to know everything. And one of those is one. But that's the culture we're talking about.
Yeah. But here's the deal. Think about it. He didn't know who Grimace was 3 years ago.
There it goes. Yeah. There it goes. We know Grimace.
Right.
We grew up
right.
Yeah.
And I still can't directly advertise to kids with that, but the cultural impact of understanding your culture, your connection, your experience, right? And the thing that blew my mind when I joined the organization was there was one data point that I was like, I think I had a moment of like, oh my God, like I've really stepped into something big. It's nearly, not quite, but it's almost 90% of America walks through the doors of McDonald's once a year.
I believe that.
Which means two things. One, you got a bunch of friends that tell you they never go to McDonald's. They're lying. They come through their doors, right? And two, think about what that means as a marketer. We traditionally are taught to narrowcast, right? But when you got 90% of the country coming through your door, I had to learn, and I loved this about the experience that I had with the brand. I had to learn how to pivot the other direction and really, really learn how to love democratization and access. Rather than trying to narrow it like Nike or I worked on Gatorade for 10 years, right? I just focused on that athlete, whether it was athletes using it or not. That's where I focused. I loved about this brand is because it's 15,000, almost 15,000 locations and you have the ability to give people access to experiences, access to things that they might not normally like. The average person might not be able to, afford a $250 Cactus Plat sweatshirt, but we gave them a little piece of that, urban fashion culture,
right?
And a $10 Happy Meal, right?
Yeah.
Method.
You loved the democratization and the access that you give because everybody has a McDonald's story. Everybody. Right.
But how do you? Because we talk about we're marketers, right? So you talk about audience segmentation. It's 90% of the audience, and it's different cultures each way. How do you guys know, or how do you decide which message to go through, or how to segment that to each?
Yeah.
each location and things like
We
that.
don't do, I tell you, we don't do it. We do, I mean, the segmentation comes more at the offer level and some of the things we're doing on personalization with data.
There it goes.
But the bigger elements, first of all, was getting people to recognize like that core youth market, that core multicultural youth market was where we were going to play. It's like, sorry, like you get to kind of 35, 40 years old and we all fall off on the end. Like we're not really great customers at that age, right? So part of it was just getting people comfortable that that's the age we were going to play at. And then it was staying connected into culture and working again with great collaborators. And by the way, if you all haven't interviewed this, I'm gonna give a shout out to Dr. Marcus Collins.
Oh yes,
You all need to get time with him if you haven't.
Been on twice.
That's
Yeah,
our guy.
so
That's our guy.
I mean, so
Love him.
he played a massive part of us thinking through strategically on the culture front. I kept him on when he went on to focus on his authoring and his education because he was an agency guy, right?
Yeah.
But I've kept him connected in as a professor in residence at McDonald's to help continue to think about, because we needed to teach the system. We needed to teach our franchisees what it meant to play in culture and be part of culture. And so that was the guiding principles to your point. We weren't really segmenting. We were defining who we were going to be in that participation in culture and connection in culture, and then democratize the heck out of it in ways that our fans said, yep, that's me. I see me, right? And whether that was Cactus Plant Flea Market or what you're seeing us do right now with the gaming community, as the last thing I worked on before I left was Minecraft, that's just launched, and the way that they're connecting the gaming community, or what we did last year with Chicken Big Mac, right? And just like going through what is essentially, that was a massive play through the social sphere, through Twitch and working with Kai and doing it in a very, very different way. So are you willing to listen what culture demands of you, but maybe really, really uncomfortable and unfamiliar to people in the organization to do it?
Can I ask you a real question for us?
Yeah.
Can I ask you a real question this is for content creators, right? So how does content creators like us work with a brand like McDonald's, right? So we just had Simon Cook on from Con, and we were talking about how do you connect the content creators to the brand, right? And we're talking about one of our main lines is impact over metrics, right? So we may not have the 100 million view like Shannon Sharp, right? But the impact that we have in the community when I go outside to go get eggs, right? When we go outside to the parties, when we go to connect, we were just with George Floyd's brother yesterday.
Yeah.
He comes to New York, he hits us up, and we do these are the things we do that mean impact. How do we get connected with you guys or a brand such like that?
Yeah, look, I mean, one of my proudest parts of the tenure I had in my role was actually our social management team and the brand content team, and their willingness to have content creators to reach out directly to them. My comment, because you can imagine, especially in the celebrity world, the number of reach outs I would get. So and so really would like to work the brand, right? So, and I'd get this little head tilt from them. Creators actually get this more than the celebrity world do, right? I'd say to them like, "That's cool. I'm not literally sitting around looking for a celebrity for me then to attach the brand to. That was the first part of advertising in my career, right? That was my Jordan years, and you find the celebrity and then you attach the brand. And don't get me wrong, there's places where that authentically still works. I get it. Where we start is much more around help us understand where you, the brand, McDonald's, and your community intersect with each other. Right. If you can come and help us understand that, you will have an audience to listen to what the potential is. And we the team very, very much understood the distinction between impact versus just scale of numbers. There were lots of creators that we worked with. It wasn't all about the numbers. It was about who were the audiences that they had. Where could they actually impact that audience? What was the intent of what we were doing? And part of it is also learning as a brand. I think the brand was continuing to learn about how to have those conversations with communities in a more close, intimate conversation than traditionally we're used to. But I would say just the mistake that most make is just come at, they would come at the organization or the brand as I am a creator. I think I can do blank, blank, blank for you. But you're not telling me anything about why you're even in the room to have the conversation with me, and you even have a relationship or an authentic connection with the brand in and of itself.
Method.
I can show you every single collaboration, every single one. I can show you some moment that took place where that creator was like, oh man, look at their connection to this brand. So that's the thing I see missed a lot, is that the creators sometimes focus, and I'm not saying they're not talented, they are.
It's the connection.
You wouldn't be doing your work if you weren't. They miss out the conversation. Again, I go back to relationships. You think about what you do in the creator space, right? We're in a much more intimate, knowledgeable, authentic connect with audiences, right? Well, you don't approach me out of the blue in a really, sort of like sales kind of way before I even know who you are in these kind of conversations, right? And so what ends up happening is creators skip the connection to who they are and their connection with the brand, and then help understand how it might actually tie into the things that we're doing. The other one that surprised me is the number of creators that come to me after we've executed something and said to me, "Oh, hey, I see you're doing, like I'll take for example right now, or I see you're doing Minecraft. I could do blank, 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 blank." I'm not going backwards now, right? Like
Are you out of your fucking mind?
Like, it's amazing how often I'll get this, like, "Oh, you should see what I can do in this space." Well, it's like, you're late. Sorry, that's okay. We didn't know about you when we were doing this. So, part of it is just, how do you build up a relationship to understand who you are, what your relationship is, so that when we're thinking about things, because that's how it comes out, we're thinking, "Oh, you know what? Let's think about how we engage those guys."
Right.
And it's not always our agency. I'll tell you, it's more often than not, it was the in-house social team that was
listening to the customer.
Yeah.
I got another question for you. Again, going back to my experience with McDonald's and a lot of our experiences with McDonald's, and I haven't seen a lot from it versus when it was so prevalent. And I feel like I have to ask you, like, whatever happened with the Ronald McDonald charity house, the Ronald McDonald House, the foundation, the charity foundation? I thought that they were doing a lot of great work with children and, children with ailments and disabilities and things of that nature. But I don't see them. I know back in the day it was advertised. I mean, this thing was prominent. Like, we're doing this. It was a part of almost like, this is McDonald's, Ronald McDonald's here. This is what he does to help out the community. It was that branch extension into the community to say, we're not just a fast food restaurant. We care about the cup. Whatever happened with that? Because I feel like I don't. Is it still around? I feel like I don't see it as much.
It is. Look, the Ronald McDonald House just celebrated their 50th anniversary this past year.
Okay.
And it's an incredible global organization.
Okay.
It is still connected, and the franchisees do a tremendous amount of work at a community level. In particular, each of those houses obviously live inside of a community.
Yeah.
Having said that, you are correct. Historically, there were things that were done far more part of the sort of integrated relationship in the marketing, which you're referencing, and that we would see when we were younger. Today, what you see, for example, if you order on a kiosk inside of one of the restaurants, there's an opportunity to round up your meal, the price of the meal.
Yes.
You'll see that start to roll over into the app pretty soon as they continue to make enhancements to the app. And then you are going to see, and I won't give the surprise away, you will see something as you move into this. Well, actually, I can say it. They just did it this past year. Sorry, I was in the midst of going on vacation when they did it. But they tied the Shamrock. They tied the return of the Shamrock Shake back to a donation back to Ronald McDonald House this year.
Nice.
So there is that connection, and there are moments inside of each of the like, for example, the All-American game.
Mm-hmm.
Saturday, all those kids spend the morning at Ronald McDonald House.
There it is
with the kids. Mello spent some time. As an alum of the McDonald's All-American game, he spent some time with some of the kids. So that's traditionally part of what it's done, but it's done at a community level with them, and you're increasingly starting to see it reconnect into the brand.
Yeah, I think that's a dope. Not to cut you off, Cuzzo. We was talking about the Ronald McDonald charity house, and I was saying that when we were kids, it just was advertised a lot more as before there was anything else other than like a big. First of all, and I might be wrong on this, but I think McDonald's is the only fast food company to even have something like this. I don't know of a Wendy's charity house or any other brand even doing anything like this, right? So I think that that was one of their, like, really just solidifying factors that not only are we one of the best fast food restaurants, but we have a charity where we're giving back directly to the children. Yeah, man. And I just was saying, we don't see it as much anymore marketed wise, right? Like we used to. Like there used to be commercials and Ronald McDonald. This was a thing. And I was just thinking like, why is it not a thing anymore? You know what I mean? That's what we were talking about.
And I was just saying to him, like, it's on very much at the local level. The charity itself originally was developed by some franchisees, and then it became a national organization over time. And they're now saying they just celebrated their 50th anniversary. Incredibly important part of so many communities and providing shelter for families when they're in that moment of probably the worst things you have to deal with as a parent. But you are seeing it start to tie back in. And then what you will see is local franchisees do a lot of their own things as well attached to it. That it just as we move into a digital world and stuff, you don't see the same kind of things being put up on in mass media the way when we were kids we would see it.
Absolutely, but like you said, but that's the importance of the storytelling for each. That's the segmentation question Jackson earlier, right? The Calvin commercial, right? That was the Uncle Charles that inspired Uncle Charles, right?
Yeah.
Calvin going to work. Right? It's those we don't see those commercials no more. It's consumer, right?
Yeah. Well, that's why the 1 in 8 work was so important.
Exactly.
And that's why that story. Part of it was also we made a decision 4 years ago to really pivot and really tell some of our people stories as well. Start telling some stories about our employees and really focus on that. And that's been the focus on some of the external marketing you've been seeing is this 1 in 8 story. And there's some great stories when you look back and see who some of the former crew are. It's fantastic. Like it's some crazy talent.
And that's why it's more than entitled, man.
Yeah.
Those are the stories that matter, man. Everybody has a story. But I'm also curious, because we ask, I want to go 2 different directions, right? So one thing we ask all of our guests, and I'm curious for you, what is the mom I made it moment for you, right? Because you've been in a lot of different organizations. What is one thing, if you had to base your legacy on, hang your hat on, what is one thing that you'd be like, man, this is something I did that was amazing?
Well,
no, not dad calling. No, that's dad calling. No, not right now.
That's not dad. That was Wendy's calling. Like, how dare you say we don't have a charity?
You know what? It probably was dad calling, saying, "Why is it always that mom moment? Why is it never the dad moment I made it?"
Yo, that was so crazy. Dad called. Really?
He's like, "What's up? Why is mom getting all the love all the time? This is a complaint I always have around my own household."
That's hilarious. Wow. We might have wait, real quick, Tariq. We might have to look how things just work out. Again, when you're open to ideas, look at that. We might now have to integrate, ladies and gentlemen. You see it here. We might have to now integrate a Papa I made it moment because of what just happened, right?
He said, "I'm just making sure you're okay. You good?
See, ladies and gentlemen, it was created here. We promise you now, we're going to start showing love to the fathers out there because clearly that was a sign from above to say, show us some love, man. Well, you got it. Papa, I made it.
No one ever doubts the powers of moms, man. It's
right.
So that's it. We're going to do what's the Papa moment?
I promise you. I promise you, I'm not dodging your question. Yeah. It's just not inherently how I think. I mean, I if I'm going to be honest about the sort of mama, it was actually, 2 college degrees.
Okay.
Because there was a time when I didn't know, I started to believe the wrong things about whether I could continue with, higher education and do some of the things that people start to doubt, you're capable of. I've always, I think great leaders have a little bit of imposter syndrome. I would say I don't ever really want to get rid of mine. Because I think it keeps you humble. I think it keeps you hungry. I think it keeps you learning. And so there's a part of me that's like, I don't know, maybe I haven't had the moment yet because I'm not done,
Right.
And it's interesting when I thought of when the McDonald's opportunity presented itself, I was talking to incredible friend and long career mentor, Antonio Lucio, who was former CMO of Pepsi, former CMO of Facebook, HP, et cetera.
Yeah.
And he's just been a force in my life as a friend and in a career. And I remember calling him and saying, "Look, this McDonald's thing is big, it's cool, but I don't know. I'm over here at Petco, I'm saving cats and dogs. We just went public. Like I'm building a culture. Like this is." And he stopped me and he said, no, 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 no. He said, I'm sorry, you don't actually get to make the judgment and the decision on that criteria anymore.
Hmm.
You're now at a place in your career where the role that you take has an opportunity for you to represent so much more than yourself. And
This motherfucker don't miss.
No, he's fucking.
the latter is like, that's Antonio. And I remember looking at him and saying, like, I'm like, okay, preach, let me understand what you're talking about. And he was like, look, no disrespect to Petco, but what you will be able to do and the generations behind you that are looking for the examples of what's possible from a McDonald's split, it's very, very different than what you're doing right now. And I'm not telling you to take it. I'm telling you to think about not only what's right for you, but what that opportunity represents for others that you spent your career advocating for, having a point of view on and thinking it through to that decision. And it changed not only my complete perception on the role itself, but it changed my absolute posture that I took going into the role. To
Right.
think about where I am at this point in my life, where I am, as a father, as later on in my career, starting to think more about what legacy looks like and what impact looks like. And it changed it. And so I guess what I would say, Jarrett, is it's not one thing in particular, but I do feel incredibly proud about that. I can look over my shoulder. I can see some talent that is much better than I will ever be as a marketer. That I know I played some small, role in guiding the trajectory of their success and their career. That I've been part of some conversations, some popular, some less popular, some of them really not popular these days, about what we need to be, what success looks like across an organization, what success looks like as an industry, and what it means to have opportunity across an industry, and feel incredibly proud of the work that I've done and invested both with myself and other leaders to try and leave a different mark. And frankly, for the shoulders that I came on, pay a little bit forward. I would say I'm not done, but I'd say that versus any one sort of particular moment that I'd go, hey, moms, look what I did.
TV, yep.
And that's probably, frankly, a reflection of who my parents are.
Right.
My dad's, my mom and my dad, but just you're never really done was kind of the view that I've always had from my family in terms of the role you play in your community, contributions you make, and to kind of not forget, where you come from, and make sure, you're taking 3 or 4 with you along the way.
I love that. I love that.
We never got that answer. That was real.
Yeah, I love that. I got a question for you. So now, Tariq, you're a father, and now you've had this career in this industry, and you're like,
shit,
yeah,
I know.
you're like, hey, this is a good industry. Could do some things here now. Are you grooming your daughter to be like, hey, you want to come over to this side? You know what I mean? Like, how does she feel about it?
So,
she's around it. She can see it. So it's like, what is that looking like now?
So, it's interesting. We were talking before we got going here that she has me, but I'm kind of a schlep compared to, like, her mom's like world lead compared to me as a marketer. And it's funny, I got this crazy, incredible energy of a kid who is a force in her own right, who has had her own journey. She was diagnosed with a very rare form of renal cancer when she was 4.5 years old. She is now 12 years cancer free. It's part of her narrative. It's
yeah, congratulations.
Family and her is now as a leader to lead Cycle for Survival. We've raised almost $1.5 million for research for rare cancer. So in some ways, I'm like, I sit in awe of that kid. And I shouldn't call her a kid anymore. She's an amazing young woman who's going off in this fall. She just got in last week. So I got a kid who's launching into college, and she'll be in Chicago next fall. And honestly, Carl and I both have looked at her and said, like, you know what? You can go into marketing from anything. Go have experiences. like go learn, go try different things on, let it see who you are. And I firmly do believe great marketers come from great experiences and great great things that they've done, and not out of a textbook. I think there's great things I've learned, obviously, but that's not the power of it. Now, I also got a kid who grew up in Manhattan who's like, you guys doing all right, but I'm thinking maybe finance. You know, but we'll see where she goes, man. And that's like, I think we try to like show her the power of the things that we get to do and impact we have in the industry, but at the same time, neither one of us ended up in this business with like this roadmap to get here. Like I was saying, like I thought I was going to go to law school. So we're just big believers of like, I encourage her to go, have great experiences and reach the stuff I'm talking about now. Go have some really smart mistakes and learn who you are, and allow luck also to kick in a little bit, and stay open to where the road might take you. But somehow I think like,
I love it, man.
I don't have to worry about guiding her anywhere. That she's a rocket ship. I mean, she just amazes me.
I love it, man.
Yeah.
You're warm and fuzzy, man. I ain't gonna lie. That's a warm and fuzzy right there. I love it, man.
Look, man, I grew up with all boys, and I am a daddy's girl, man. Like, I mean, when she was born, I was like, oh, daddy's girl. I get it. I mean, I am like hooked. She's my one and only. I remember looking at her when she was, a young teenager and being like, look, I don't even understand your mom at full, at her age. I don't know what makes you think I'm going to get you as a woman as a teenager. Like, I grew up with all boys. Like, I'm doing the best. Exactly. So I don't know, man. I guess I got her this far without, breaking her or doing something dumb, but she's on a great path. And like I said, I get real excited about this next chapter looks like for her, because she's just this amazing force of a young woman.
Man, I gotta ask you now, man. Like, what this? I did want to ask you before we go into the mountaintop. Yeah. I'm gonna tell you right now. I'm gonna fast forward. I'm gonna ask you what the mountaintop looks like, because you've been a lot of different places. But you also said something earlier that I want to kind of rewind. You said failed greatly, right? What was one of the biggest failures that you've had in your career? One of the biggest lessons? I don't call them failures. The lessons. What's the biggest lesson you learned throughout your career, man?
Yeah, look, I think my time in the financial services space, I went in at a time when part of the reason there was an attraction to having me come into that sector was a desire for really thinking about change. And I think that chapter, I learned that the distinction between, you might know what the right change is for a culture, a company, and a business problem. But you have to help an organization understand the requirements for change and allow them to get their head around it. And I knew what the elements of change were that we needed to do, but I thought that the power and the need to change was more important than helping an organization understand. And for me to be self-aware of the fear around those requirements of change and what was required. And I think I could have been a lot more successful in that part of my career if I hadn't been so assumptive that the obvious need to change was enough for people to come along. And I've become since then, like I am by definition, I love transformation. I am a transformation leader. I love to go into places where that is what the requirement of to the mountaintop, to your point, is like, if the goal is, we got to turn something around, or we got to transform something, I'm in. It's where I get my energy and I love it. I'm a hell of a lot better at it than I was in that chapter of my life, because knowing what to do and knowing you're right isn't always going to be the formula that gets you there, right? You can stub your toe a lot of different ways along the way.
Method.
Yeah.
That was real. I got so many questions, but I'm having such a great conversation. I just want to say, man, I'm learning so much. And I know our listeners, we talk to marketers every single week, man. We talk to these people, man. We didn't know what to expect, man. And I appreciate you just coming on and just being real, your authentic self, giving us the gems that you've given us, man. It means a lot to us. It means a lot.
It's been an honor and a pleasure, guys. I really appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity.
Man. That's why we lead the show with saying phenomenal. Like I told you he's gonna drop some gems on it. You know what I'm saying? Like I
was feeling the heat though, Chad. I mean, I'll tell you what, man. You had me feeling some pressure kicking it off like that.
That's what he does. I've got to say it too, because Case is here. Man, I'm grateful and thankful to be able to have this conversation with you, Tariq. Like I said, it took 5 years to get on a conversation. My son sees it, to see the thing that you've done. These are the same things I preach to my child. You know what I mean? So thank you for coming on, telling these stories, telling what it is, man. Papa, I love you. You got a question to ask? Let it. This is your time to shine, baby. This is what's up. You want to say something? He's getting shot. Don't get shy on me, baby. Well, just tell him about the McDonald's. Tell him how you feel.
Bring it. What you want to know? What do you want to know about McDonald's?
That how's the recipe for the fries? Because they're super good.
Everybody wants to know that.
Let me tell you. So you're asking,
that's godson. That's top secret. He can't tell you that. It's top secret.
But I will tell you, you are asking me about the thing that I loved the most about my job. I used to have menu, and I had a chef on my team, and I used to get to go spend time in the kitchen, learn how we made things and what we did. And I'll tell you what, the French fries are a lot more simple than you think. It's just where we get those potatoes from.
Right.
There's a secret to the way we fry them up, so they don't keep too much oil. Right. And you are right. There is no better French fry. There's no better French fry out there. I'll tell you what, I actually got to even go to Idaho and go pick some of those potatoes out of the ground and see how they become a French fry. Yeah. I literally went to the farm. I rode in the tractor. I went to where we keep the potatoes, and then I went all the way to the factory to see how we made them. So it's a pretty amazing thing. A little bit like going to Charlie the Chocolate Factory.
How cool is that, right, Bob?
Yeah, really cool.
You know what? Just because we're talking about it, Tariq. I mean, I'm pretty sure I'm off, but I would love to just have a roundabout idea of how many fucking potatoes does it take a year to supply 15,000 locations with unlimited. I've never seen. We can say this. We can say the motherfucking ice cream machine always break down, right? But I have never heard a person say that they have gone to a McDonald's and they have run out of fries. And as much as people we used to just go and order just the fries. Just give me large fries. You don't want nothing else? No, just large fries. And they've never run out of. How many potatoes does it take a year to supply?
And don't forget, you're just talking about 13,000 locations in just the U.S. alone. So you got globally, right, somewhere in the neighborhood of just north of 25,000 around the world. God. I will tell you that I sat in awe of the guys that run the supply chain. They are some of the most incredible, talented, unbelievable, capable people in the industry. Because McDonald also didn't break supply during COVID either. These are people that are. There's a reason I'm a marketer, not supply chain logistics. These guys do magic that I am not. Way over my pay grade. The short answer is to your question: a lot. If you knew how many chickens, how many cows, how many potatoes, it's a lot. But it's also, how do you do it responsibly? How do you think about the sustainability of the planet and the things that you do? And the company is pretty incredible. I feel honored to have had the time that I had to spend there. And when I see the magic that they put into to things like maintaining a sustainable supply chain in a way that's healthy, even in responding in moments of challenges, which I had to deal with last year. We had a food incident we had to deal with.
Yeah.
That's when you see the real power of an organization and the strength of an organization and what they know. It was an honor to be part of that team to try and solve for it. So it's been an unbelievable experience. I just appreciated the time that I had to spend there and the people that I got to develop relationships with. They have a saying there that I kind of chuckled at when I first got there. They say, oh, you're going to get ketchup in the veins. And I thought, oh, that's cute. It's there is a real truth to the depth of the connection that you have with the brand and the way you do things.
I love it, man. I love it.
This is such a phenomenal episode. I just want to say, Tap, thank you again, man. We do this a lot, man, and I'm gonna just tell you, I'm feeling great right now because I've seen your ascent. I've been following you, somebody that I've looked to, and some message that we preach is there's a message in the movement. I've watched how you've moved, the certain decisions you've made as a leader, right? These are the things we've implemented to our agency, into our day-to-day, right? And so I just want to say thank you, man. I'm here with my son, and for those listening out there, right, this is what the dream looks like. This is what the dream looks like, right? And you're hearing from people, having a conversation, being your authentic self. I got there to myself. Like I became my authentic self when I put the hat and hoodie on. I just said, this is who I am. And that's when I got all the relationships. And that's when I was able to bring Cuzzo on, and we were able to do things right, and we were able to change our community effectively, man. So nobody can take this away from us. It's more than the title. Cuzzo ended off, because I'm gonna get emotional in this mug, man. I love it.
Listen, you know what it is, man. First of all, we want to welcome you to the More Than the Title family, Tariq. So this is what we do for all of our guests. We don't gatekeep. We understand that you've had a phenomenal career, but it's power in numbers, right? We're on episode 202, but we've had 190 something guests come on the show. So now that you are a part of this family, what that means is you now have access to every prior guest that we've had on the show and any future guests that we have on the show. So if there's any person that you ever see come on the show and you would like to connect with them, what we normally do is we do a group chat after the show, right? With me, Cuzzo, and our guest, right? I don't know if we have your number or whatever, but if not, we will ask you for your personal number, and we start a group chat. That way, if there's anybody that you ever want to connect with or whatever the case, you just say, hey, I would love to connect with so-and-so. We check your schedule. We check their schedule. We do a Zoom call. We introduce A, this is B, this is A, and then we remove ourselves from the call, and whatever you guys form from that is that, right? That's what we do. It's one of our things that we do to not gatekeep and just help connect people, because there is power in numbers. So welcome to the More Than the Title family. Number two, you know, I missed you at the McDonald. I was supposed to be there. Because we have a good friend. Marcus was there. Marcus was there. Yep. Marcus Gilmore was there. So Marcus hit me up yo, bro. Yeah, Marcus was like, yo, bro, all American games come through. And I'm like, I forgot what we had to do. I was like, bro, I ain't gonna be able to make it. But we're sorry that we missed you there. But now, you know, again, that's your part of the family. If you're ever in New York,
we would have been sitting right there with each other. Marcus was right there with me. Right see, there in front of me. Hit me up.
Yep. Yeah. You see? So, but if you're ever in New York again, you know, just give us a heads up. We'd love to link up with you, even if it's just, you know, for
the most beautiful part about being done my time at McDonald's, I'm back to being a New Yorker full time. This is home for me. So I was Chicago, New York.
We're gonna connect then. There it is. So we're gonna connect.
Home. I am home.
Yeah. There it is. And then also you're going to Cannes, right?
I am, yeah.
So definitely we're going to Cannes. So we look forward to linking up with you and building with you, man. So welcome to the family, ladies and gentlemen. I told you at the beginning of the show this was going to be another phenomenal episode. Right now, my track record is 100 over 100. I'm batting 100. No error ratings, because our guests just come on and they do exactly what we say they're going to do. They come in and they drop gems. Tariq is no different. He came on and he was intimate about his journey. He opened up about what it looked like for him growing up as a child, the things that he battled, right? How he got through it and overcame it. But he also touched on repeatedly the support system that he had, from his parents to his coaches to the people that were around him, that helped to build him to say it is okay to not be perfect. It is okay to make a mistake. He took that lesson and carried it with him in his journey, and then he used that as a foundation when he became a leader to now give it back. He did reverse mentorships, right? He believes in a certain type of leadership style that has fostered other people to believe in their dreams, right? And then one of the most important things that he told us on this episode was, even though we believe that
the softy machine is always broken, it's not. It's only 5% of the time. It just so happens that the 5% is on the hottest day in August, and your throat is parched, and you're dying for a smoothie.
But understand that there's big things coming along the way, and the smoothie machine will be working full time. And understand that McDonald's and his, is a part of our community. It's been a part of us. It's a part of our journey. He's a family man. He told you about his daughter, what she battled through, and what she is doing once again to overcome the things that she is going through and still be a better person. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tariq Hassan, More Than the Title. We warned you. It is what it is. Of another phenomenal episode. We are out of here. We see y'all later, man.
You have to dream. The dream is free. The dream is free.
I'm sorry, man. I'm so caught up in the moment that I even forgot to end it.
I'm getting emotional.
Everybody getting emotional. I'm emotional. He's emotional. Everybody's emotional. It's what we always tell you all the time, ladies and gentlemen. The dream is free.
But the hustle is sold separately. Tell them what's up. Tell them
what it is, man.
Say thank you.
Thank you for joining More Than the Title.
And then we out of here.
What you know about me? what you know about